So I had thought it was Millicent Quibb, but it's Millicent Quibb.
It's whatever you want it to be, baby.
This is very exciting. It comes out tomorrow.
Yes, my goodness.
The world sees a book that has been in your head for how long, Kate McKinnon?
12 years and change.
So let's just, for everybody here who thinks, oh, Kate got on SNL and she was like, I'm going to cash out. I'm going to cash out on being an SNL cast member, get that kid's book money. You had this idea before you got hired on SNL.
I really did. Well, I just want to say thank you, Seth Meyers, because it's Seth Meyers. He came here tonight. I don't know what you've been bribed with, but it must have been something good. Anyway, and thank you all so much for coming. There are so many people that I personally know and love in this room tonight. I'm feeling a little emo. And these are fake, and I'm wearing them to feel smarter. So, okay. Just to get that all out of the way.
Good.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll see if it works. I'll take them off because I actually see worse with them. So like 12 years ago, I was destitute and not doing very much, and I had this idea, and I have always loved. I can't see it. I've always loved middle grade literature, which is what is Harry Potter and Roald Dahl and Lemony Snicket. This is middle grade literature, which I didn't know, and it doesn't mean that it's medium good. It means that it refers to the age range of the reader, which is 8 to 14-ish, depending. So I started writing this, in my mid-20s.
And obviously, you weren't writing it consistently for the 12 years.
We'd hope not, but I did write it a lot. I did try a lot to write it. I wrote it so many hundreds of times. I wrote the first chapter. I do estimate 500 times I wrote the first chapter, which is not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to go all the way through and then go back and revise. I couldn't do it. I had to get the first chapter right, and then I wrote the whole thing, and then I had to, of course, rewrite every word of it.
The most heartbreaking thing would be if the 500th draft was identical to the first. And you were like, I had it. How much did it change?
So much. Well, it began, so the book, I should let you know, so the book is about 3 dorky little girls who live in this repressive turn-of-the-century town who get kicked out of etiquette school and then get invited to a mysterious new etiquette school that is run by the infamous mad scientist Millicent Quibb, who's the last mad scientist in the town of Antiquarium.
Antiquarium, by the way, I feel like is my mic as hot as it seems to me?
Is mine? Yes, it's hot.
I feel like I'm just like jumping in and mansplaining everything you say. I read the book, Last Mad Scientist. You can just bring me down a little.
Well, so that's Gertrude, Dee Dee, and Eugenia. And so it did begin with a drawing of not that good. That's by the illustrator Alfredo Caceres, who did this exquisite art that I'm just so in love with. But I did a doodle of those gals in my mid-20s. And it changed a lot because initially it was just about 3 gals who were little mad scientists who lived in a town who were bedraggled and had no one and were hated by the town. And then eventually I thought, no, there needs to be a mentor character because art imitates life. And in life I have found that I wasn't alone. I had incredible mentors, my parents chief among them, and then so many wonderful teachers, some of whom are here tonight. Love you guys. And adults who championed whatever weird frickin' thing I was doing, which was a lot of weird stuff. Taking apart VCRs, bringing home lobster shells from a seafood restaurant and putting them in the tub and pretending I was at the ocean. And then not demanding that they be thrown away, even after they started to stink. And for this, I thank my beautiful mother, Laura Campbell, who's here. So I thought, these kids need a mentor. I had mentors. I wasn't alone. And I'm very into the gruff mentor, lost child archetype that you see in movies like Hunt for the Wilder People, Grand Budapest Hotel, Bad News Bears. You know, this I'm very drawn to that, and so I wanted to replicate that dynamic. And Willy Wonka is a prime example. Willy Wonka is my favorite adult in a middle grade novel, and so I wanted to have that sense of unpredictability and gruffness, but that belies a deep care and the ability to really see a child, see what's special about them, and to foster that, which was done for me, and which I hope, which I've tried in everything I've done in my career to do for younger people. It's been my private mission the whole time.
You set the book in the town of Antiquarium.
Yes.
Great name.
Yes. Oh, thanks. Hey.
Again, Kate was on my show tonight, airing tomorrow. We talked about how great the names are in this.
Thank you so much.
Sort of the narrator, Candlestank?
The narrator, yes. Well, so I wanted to, I can't do anything in my own voice. I never liked my voice. That's why I started doing sketch comedy. Anyway, so I thought I have to write this. I tried to write it just without a narrator character, but I had to have one. So I named her G. Edwina Candlestank. And she's a mad science historian who wants to educate the youth. And she's written this book.
Also, you said it in 1911. Why the choice of that year?
Yes. So okay. The clothes, the hair, the architecture. More than that, though, you know, I wanted to. I felt a dichotomy in my own town growing up, where it was like a town with a lot of hippies in it and a lot of really creative people, and also it was a town on Long Island, and I felt sort of bedraggled by all of the social rules that were permeating everything. And I thought, I want to ratchet up that juxtaposition. And what better year than 1911, when people were going to the farthest corners of the earth. Naturalists like Alexander von Humboldt were going and finding giant squid, and oh my God, this is amazing. And also, oh my God, the etiquette, the bustles, the 8,000 buttons up to your freaking nose, you know. It was, I think that contrast is fascinating, when you really had to be by the book, or you would really get kicked out of society. And in the meantime, there was all this incredible discovery of nature going on. And the clothes. So short answer, the clothes.
Obviously, Wizards, resoundingly taken.
Wizards done.
Done.
We have done Wizards.
Wizards are done.
You can't do Wizards anymore, you guys. I'm sorry.
Anybody who's like, I got a new bounce on Wizards, you're like,
Yeah.
get out of here. Vampires pretty well raked over. They're done.
You gotta make a way to censor
These
you
vampires
guys.
are friendly. I don't want to hear it.
No more vampires.
But
leprechauns, maybe.
Maybe. But I feel like you did not take Mad Scientist because it was available. You took it because there was a real draw for you.
I took it because it was available. You're smart. Seth is such a smart guy. That's true. I took it partly because it was available. I was like, we're not doing wizards. There's nothing new. We can't say any more about wizards. But mad science, it's been done, but it hasn't been done to completion. But also, I loved science. I was a sciencey little kid. I'm drawn to mad science because of the hair. These people have wild hair. I never quite figured out my hair. I love just the notion that it's okay to just have whatever. But also, mad science, I think, is a useful tool for exploring the torture and ecstasy of the creative life. I find it a metaphor for art because it's discovery, it's creation, and it's these mad scientists, they're not happy people. And yet they are driven by an urge to know and to create. And I've had quite a tortured life as an artiste, and I think we all have. And so I think that's useful as a metaphor for being creative. I also think it's a useful way to explore the question of our time, which is, are we going to be ruined by our greed or saved by our ingenuity? I'm talking climate change, you guys. And I hate to say the C word, but I do. In thinking about, well, what is the antagonist in this story, and see how smart I seem with this? This is a good prop. They're fake glasses.
I'm close enough to tell.
They're not prescription.
There's not even lenses in them.
They're no. What was I saying? Mad science, it's like, I forget what I was saying.
It's interesting. I want to loop
Climate
back.
change.
I want to loop
Mad
back to
science.
the hair thing real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think if they just had well-combed hair, people would just call them scientists? Is the mad... Are we putting too much on the hair when they're like, that's a mad scientist?
No, it's all hair.
Yeah.
Because to be the kind of person who dares to wish to create and to wish to know, you can't worry about etiquette. And I think the experience of being a young bizarro, which I was, and which all 12-year-olds are bizarre. Each and every one of us was a bizarre 12-year-old at one point, and I know I was, and I loved science, and I was so, I had the dual experience, which I think every 12-year-old has, of being in love with the world, in love with the natural world, in love with art, in love with animals and the people around me, and wanting to know and just eat everything. And I also felt like shit because I was like, I had a bad perm and I wore flannel, and I was like, I was in a ghost hunters club at recess, and I sucked, and no one, I didn't have a lot of friends, and I finally found one friend who liked lizards, and thank God. But I think most young people have that experience, that duality, and so I wanted to speak to them. I mean, the whole genre of middle grade, that's what it's speaking about. It's all about identity and discovering what you believe in and what you want to bring to the world. Are you going to bring the heat? And by the heat, I mean, are you going to contribute? Are you going to try to help the world, or are you not? And so the good and evil in these books presents a real question to young people. And I believe in young people. I really believe that if you tell a young person, the thing that's odd about you, that's what's going to save you and what's going to save the rest of us. So don't put that in a box. Just keep going with that. Do that, unless it's illegal. Sometimes it's too odd. That's another show.
I want to lay out, I have a thesis here.
Oh my God, what? Yes, what?
You're such a wonderful character actor in sketches, and each person you play is so well defined. And I feel like that came across in the way you wrote. Do you feel like that came naturally to you, or were you really aware like every character is going to have a distinct way of talking, and every character is going to be different than the other?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Seth.
I did find that I knew what their voices were going to be as I was writing it, because I knew I wanted to record the audiobook, which I then did with my sister Emily, who's also a comedian, and so I knew what their voices were going to be. I found figuring out the dynamic between three kids, I found that difficult. I had like adjusting their little personalities to make sure like the entire gamut of the human set of behaviors was represented by these three girls took 12 years. But I definitely knew what their voices sounded like as I was writing.
Was there a character you identified with? Like Millicent Quibb or any of the Porch sisters?
Oh gosh, okay, so I guess all of them. Well, they say, I read once in a book written by someone smart that it was like every character in what you're writing is some part of you. And I definitely found that to be different facets of my whatever the hell I got going on came out in all these different characters, and especially there's one of the Gertrude is the oldest sister and she's the protagonist, and I found most of myself in her as a 12-year-old. She feels kind of she loves everybody, and she really wants to help, and she also feels her self-esteem is not that great because she keeps getting knocked down, and I felt like that. And then I also identified with Millicent Quibb, the mentor, because I'm now 40 and I have children in my life, thank God, and I observe myself with them, and I have a sort of, I like to try to teach in a, what am I trying to say? I'm weird, I'm weird. But I love kids, and the most gratifying thing in my entire life is when like a 12-year-old has come up to me on the street being like, I saw Weird Barbie, I'm weird, I'm gay, I'm blah, blah, blah. And I think, oh my God, thank God I have, that's why I'm here. I think that's,
I remember I went up to Ryan Gosling and said, I saw Barbie, you and I have the same torso.
I know.
It felt nice.
I've seen it.
Well, I guess you mentioned it, so let me ask about, you obviously had a very strong visual sense of what you wanted this book to look like. But you weren't going to draw it, so talk about how you got connected with Alfredo and what that process was.
Okay, so I had ideas of what these things wanted to look like, and I did like little crappy doodles of them. And then they showed me an array of illustrators, all with beautiful work, but I saw his, and it had such a Edward Gorey, but like, I'd never seen anything like it. It had such a fresh feel, and I was in love with the way it looked. And so I made some suggestions about what I had in my head, and then he turned it into this beautiful collection of diagrams. I also, I'm obsessed with Victorian anatomical and botanical prints, and so I wanted to echo that, but he turned it into this magical whole other thing, and he's a beautiful artist, and I'm very, very lucky. I love the art in the book. I think, if anything, just look at the pictures.
Just look at it. Now,
skip the book.
You do realize, Kate, if kids love this book, and they want another one, you don't got 12 and a half years. This is not an age known for its patience. Are you prepared for this?
I was not. It's one a year. And I have already written the second one, and I did not have 12 years, and that was hard.
And you were telling me backstage tonight, there's like tons of misspellings. You were like, I wrote it so fast, it's like bare.
Oh, I don't spell. I forgot their names. I don't know what's in there. I don't know what I did. Thankfully, I have an incredible editor, Erica Turner, who's here tonight. And an incredible agent and collaborator, Ted Malwer, who's also here tonight. And the funny thing is, I never wrote any SNL sketches by myself at all. If anything, I just watched. I mean, I contributed what I could.
You're a collaborator. I would have said you were a collaborator.
I contributed what I could, but I mean, I was in a room with some very, very smart people who I was watching and learning from. But I never did anything myself. And so this was tough, but it does not happen in a vacuum. And I was helped by the two of them principally, and by other people who were kind enough to read and give me feedback and help me with major decisions, What's her hair? I always...
It always comes back to hair.
It does, like with SNL. I don't know how you did it, but I could never do anything unless I knew what the voice was and what the hair was. And then suddenly everything became clear. But that was the most important thing.
See, my approach was totally different. And that's why I think without performers, it would have been the flat. I would never know, and I would go to the heads of the departments and be like, just tell me what the hair is. Tell me I have no visual sense at all. Wow. Yeah. It's a problem.
Where did you come from? An idea?
I grew up in a blank home.
Yes.
The walls were unadorned. But it's interesting, and you talk about I never wrote anything at SNL. That is selling Kate very short, because as far as pulling your weight, every single thing you were given by writers at SNL, you elevated to 5x of what it had any right to be elevated to.
Wow. Oh. Thank you.
I was thinking about this thing, and when you said it was very flattered, you said it's nice that I'm here, but I miss so much sitting here and Kate sitting there, because this was, where we collaborated the most was at Weekend Update, where you would come on and be so deeply funny. And I realized I have two things in my office which are relics of Update characters of yours. One, Chris and Sarah, who used to write Olya Pavlotsky.
Yes.
Kate used to come on as a very sad Russian woman.
The saddest.
Yeah. And you used to call me Seth Meyer.
Seth Meyer.
And they gave me a nameplate for my desk that says Seth Meyer. And every now and then, someone, an NBC executive will come and sit on my couch and be talking to me, and I just watch as they're and you can tell they're does he not know? And the other one, you guys remember the story of someone who it was a painting of Jesus.
Yes,
that,
in Spain.
And what's the process called? They were like restoring it.
Yes.
Beautiful painting of Jesus, and the restoration basically made it look like a monkey. And you came on as her. Very, very thick Spanish accent.
Yeah.
But you had done a painting of me, which is the most grotesque, but also really beautifully done in that great SNL way. Like somebody in the SNL art department was like, "Oh, I'll throw my best," and so I have that on the wall too.
Yeah.
I think of you often. I think of our update time often. So very happy.
I think of you often. You know, when you left SNL to do your show, oh, I was sad. Oh my God, you were such a beautiful mentor. You taught so much. I don't know if you meant to, but you. I mean, you weren't being, but I learned so much just from watching. You would come down while a sketch was rehearsing and just immediately know how to fix it and just so kindly suggest how to fix it, and then it would be fine.
No. It would be really funny if it was like, I did not want to teach you anything. And two, I'm very upset because those are my secrets.
Okay.
It's bad, but there was never anybody I worked with who came before or after me that I didn't learn anything from. All right, sorry, I learned something from everyone.
Yes.
Except how to structure a sentence to make it have the meaning I intended. Were those, the people you mentioned earlier, Roald Dahl and the like, were those your books growing up when you were a kid?
Yes, I was in love with Roald Dahl, Lemony Snicket, Pseudonymous Bosch, all these, like Pippi Longstocking, the Astrid Lindgren books, all these like voice-heavy middle grade authors who had protagonists that were complete oddballs. I really loved that, but I also really loved nonfiction, and there was a book that I checked out every day from the library about electronics, and my mom let me take apart VCRs, thank you, Mom, and do stuff like that, and there was like a thing about how to construct a motor out of magnets and a coil of wire. And I like made a motor, and I brought it to school thinking, someone's gonna hook up with me because of this. And
Did you just like bring it out to recess and you're just like...
It spins, so yeah.
So obviously I know what I'm doing.
I was 9, so also.
My mom used to read us Roald Dahl at night.
Yeah.
And I remember, let's say we're 9 and 7. And the book is BFG. And my dad walks in and he's like, does BFG, does that stand, is that what does the F stand for? And my mom like laughed. And we were like, what? It's friendly. What are you guys saying? And they were like, we'll tell you when you're older. And then it became this like long-running thing. For whatever reason, it was the one we were thinking about. And we'd be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Even though we at that point knew. And I just remember one Thanksgiving, my mom, like after a couple glasses of wine, just out of nowhere went, big fucking giant.
Are they funny, your parents?
Yeah.
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 My dad, I would say, is like on purpose funny, and my mom's a little on accident.
Got it.
But like hers is aging better. Yeah.
Got it.
Like my dad, I would say, is like used to tell a really like tight story.
Got it.
Yeah.
SAG. I see.
Still very funny.
My parents are very fun. My mother is the funniest person I know. My father was very, very funny. Mel Brooks was on in the house every second. They spoke in quotes from SNL. They would say, "Oh no," like Mr. Bill, and they would be like land shark, and I would be like, "These are interesting American phrases." Oh no, that must be, what is that, from the 1800s? Cool. I didn't know that these were quotes from a TV show, and then eventually started watching.
It's so interesting.
Ooh, I was tired in church.
It's so interesting. There's that new movie about the first SNL. And you realize like what none of that first cast had, which you and I and every cast from a certain age forward is. Our parents were so excited when we got on that show.
Yeah.
Like John Belushi's parents were like, "What is this?" Whereas like we told our parents, they were like, "Oh my God, I watched that." And it was the coolest thing in the world.
Mom, I booked the pilot.
Oh, exactly. And then they're like, "What's the pilot?" It's like, "It's a laundromat. We're a bunch of friends."
It's on pretty late, Mama. Yeah.
That was a really cool thing about it.
Yes.
Did you have a favorite character, chapter, or scene in the book?
I just really loved. Hello. Oh, hi. A visitor.
That was like one of those like where Ellen scares someone, but a really bad one. That like Ellen incorrectly heard someone's biggest fear was somebody bringing out audience questions.
Oh, she's gonna scream. No, I loved coming up with all of these things, these creatures, and then doodling them, and I loved writing the dialogue of these three girls. It took a while, but eventually they became very distinct in my mind and had their own voice and their own thing that they talked about, and that was the funnest part. That was the funnest part.
All right, ready?
What do they have there?
I have any questions.
Yeah. Oh, he's got his now. Oh. Ooh.
Because with my questions, I chose the font. If you could go back, start over, and be a scientist, would you?
I would not have. I'm not smart enough, is the truth. But I would have been. I would like to have said that I was a climate to do research in alternative energy, because my father, who is no longer with us, was an architect who focused on solar architecture, and he was doing residential architecture on Long Island in the 90s when no one wanted solar panels on their house. So he would beg his clients, please, we're running out of oil. We have a problem. And he would beg them, and no one wanted them because there were no tax rebates. And so I grew up. Reagan cut the tax benefits for solar panels, and this is a crisis. He was so worried in the 90s. He was so worried. And so that was drilled into me. And so if I had it to do over, maybe I would have tried to support that endeavor in some way. Not smart enough, but I could have got them coffee while they were doing it.
I'm very happy where you ended up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any advice for someone stuck in the middle of a creative project? Some words of wisdom to finish a project.
Cut your losses. No, never. Never.
If it takes 13 years,
If it
that's
takes
too long.
13 years, maybe at 13. Gosh, it's torture. It's torture. And yet, if you really care about something and you really have something that's like, won't leave you alone, that you want to say, that you believe, I mean, everything can be distilled to one sentence that is a sentence that you believe to be true about life. And if you believe it so hard that you have to say it in whatever way, you have to say it. You just have to find a way to deal with the criticism and the inner criticism and the problems and send it to your friends, because friends will help if you're stuck on something. Don't you find this that, I mean,
Yes.
How does anyone write anything alone? I really don't understand.
We're very lucky that we know people who we also know can write and have good ideas, but I always say, if it's comedy, read it out loud, because you will always, every comedy thing anyone's ever written should be shorter, and you only find that out by reading it out loud.
So true.
But even, if you're a young person, like, just find the friend of yours that you most share taste with, and just ask them to read it. Because sometimes it's enough. Maybe they don't even have advice for you, but they can be honest and say, I wasn't bored, And that's, by the way, that's a huge part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a nugget in something that someone says that is true, that you find out to be true, and you just have to ask around and you get the nugget.
I also, whenever young writers ask for advice, one thing I would say is, like, if you tell people you're a writer, have written things. If you're like, I'm a writer, I would say to somebody like, oh, I'd love to read something of yours. And if their next thing they said is, well, I'll get working on it, I would say, you're not quite a writer yet. So, and you should always be replacing your best thing, You should always be working not to write their fifth thing. You should be trying to write your best thing.
Seth's was better.
I've always been a bit of a weird kid. How can I feel comfortable in my own skin?
Who wrote that?
I have her name. It's Katie.
Oh man, Katie. Oh boy. Well, that's just like the biggest question of life, I think. I mean, I think everyone feels that in their own way. Even the most popular girl in school. I've tested this theory. I've talked to them. They have it too. I think that I think it's helpful to know that I find this to be true. The world will not be helped by you not being yourself. I think that if everyone was doing that, the world would slow down and stop spinning, and history would stagnate, and no one would ever learn anything, and no one would be changed by anybody else. And I think that what the world needs from you, even if it tells you that's not what you should do, what it needs is for you to be exactly what you are and become the fullest, most fully realized version of that. I do believe that. And I do believe that that's how the species moves forward. Evolution is... Nobody never helped anybody by doing what already was done,
We have to break the algorithm, and we're going to do that with unique people.
Mm-hmm. Seth's was better. Yeah.
Aside from Lorne Michaels, is there anyone else who you feel has had or changed the course of your career, has helped, or changed the course of your career? That's for both of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of people at the right moment just lifted me out of a bad sitch, and it gave me a chance. And then a lot of people taught me what I needed to know at the moment that I needed to know it. You being one of them, for sure. Good guy, good guy. But yes, it seemed always that at the lowest point, when I was the most sure that it was time to call it, someone would give me a chance, and a miracle. You?
It is interesting how everybody is scared at SNL. Mm-hmm. And everybody thinks they're failing at SNL. Because I do remember you coming to my office one time and saying, like, I'm so worried about how badly it's going. And I almost, what I wanted to do was laugh in your face and be like, it is going so much better for you than you realize it is. You're so good at this. This is such a perfect place for you to be. And we're so lucky to have you. You saw him today. Mike Shoemaker was mine. He's a producer for my show. I guess he was gone when you started SNL, but he was a producer at SNL when I started, and now he basically runs my show. But Lorne has, and I love Lorne very much, but like, you know, there's that like distant father figure thing, whereas like Shoemaker would like get in the weeds with you emotionally and help guide you and save you from your worst instincts, and I don't think I'd be where I was without him.
Yeah. That's like what you did for me. Like, were you there when I did that Scottish thing?
I love that Scottish thing.
I did
I
did a...
I think about it all the time. I can't believe it didn't work.
I'm of Scottish descent. I always wanted to do a Scottish accent on SNL. I was like, the Prime Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, had just been elected, and I was like, this is the top story. It's time. So I typed up a thing, did it at the table, bombed. You're supposed to wait if it bombs at the table, what?
Anywhere from 5 weeks to never submit it again.
You're really supposed to wait because it acquires a patina, a stink of failure.
You never want to hear your beloved fellow castmates and writers go, ugh.
I did this shit every 3 weeks for an entire year. Finding new reasons. Oh, maybe it's this Scottish person. Oh, the referendum, it's my moment.
The one I remember was the Scottish woman who was giving a tour and kept she would explain something and then she would ask if anyone wanted to give her a kiss.
Would you like to give me a kiss? You must kiss a real Scottish lass. Which, like, I'm sorry, you're laughing? That's fine.
By the way, I always believed in it and I could not.
But
we were on an island on that one.
I kept doing this at the table, at the read-through table, and eventually, I don't know if it was you or if it was some other wise person who cared about me, said, "You gotta stop. You can't do it anymore." And I was like, maybe one more thing. I got one more idea.
The most famous one of that for me. And as head writer, I always tried to push people away from resubmitting. I would always basically say, like, write a new thing, you know? And certain people, Will Forte could never give up an idea. And I remember it was February of the Winter Olympics, and he wrote a sketch called Luge Yourself. Again, everything's crushing tonight. And it was like two guys on a luge having a fight, like breaking up over the course of the luge. Anyway, did a fraction of what it's doing right now. Also, I think one of the things, I remember Lauren being like, it's unproducible, because again, you'd have to like build a luge track.
That too.
So, anyway, we don't do it. That was February. Then it's like May. Forte comes to my office, he's like, we're thinking about resubmitting Lose Yourself. And I was like, I gotta be honest, that really struck me as a Winter Olympic idea. And he was like, oh, I didn't think of it as that.
If Scotland ever has a referendum again.
Yeah. It is heartbreaking.
I'm storming the building.
It was a really good Scottish accent. The very needy tour guide who really wanted a kiss. Breaks my heart. What was your favorite Weekend Update character you played?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
Just with to come out to the kind of warmth and esteem, not for me, but for her, and to soak that up vicariously was just a joy.
That's really good.
Yeah.
You guys, we are going to wrap it up. And I want to remind everybody that you can pick up / purchase. I don't know. I mean, I would, if I were you, I'd do the pickup. There's 2 lines of free and full price. I don't know. Somebody wrote this card. I'll just read it as written, and we can all sort of unpack it. Reminder for audience: pick up / purchase your copy of the Millicent Quibb on the way out. There you go. One more time for author Kate McKinnon.